Hi, students. So this week, what we're going to be, or for this module, what we're going to be talking about is objectivism, cultural relativism, and moral reasoning. We'll also be focusing on learning more precise vocabulary that we'll use throughout the semester. So the learning objectives for this module are first to explain, differentiate, and apply ethical terminology. Next, to explain what objectivism is and why we use it as an assumption for doing moral reasoning, particularly in this class. And finally, be able to explain cultural relativism. So what is it? And objections to it. Okay. So again, when we're going into this vocabulary stuff, what we're really trying to do here is to expand the tools in our toolbox, okay? This allows us to understand exactly what we mean and to say exactly what we mean, okay? So first I'm going to start with deontic claims versus axiological claims. A deontic claim will be about what one is obligated to do, okay, about what one's moral duties are, things like that. You'll often see words like what is right, okay, or what is permissible. Okay. Axiological claims are claims that revolve around the nature of what is good, okay, or moral values such as compassion, solidarity, things like that. When we are talking about acts, okay, actions, things that are done, processes, we can make moral claims about those different acts. Okay, were they morally necessary? Meaning, was one obligated to act that way? Was that a morally obligated act, obligatory act? Was it morally required one should not do it? Was it actually morally impermissible, meaning forbidden one should not ever do it? Would it be a morally permissible act, something that is allowed but is not required for minimal decency? So morally permissible, you can do it, but you could also just not do it, okay? Is it supererogatory? Supererogatory means above and beyond the call of duty. Okay, so it is not only just good to do, but it's also recognized as not morally required to be a decent human. Next is sometimes when we're talking about something, we're talking about an act and we don't want to make claims that are about its necessity, right? Or its impermissibility. Might want to be a little vaguer in our language and use words like morally blameworthy, okay? Or the opposite, morally praiseworthy, okay? So this is morally blameworthy would be something's not good, something is wrong. Praiseworthy would be it is good. Somebody should be praised for it. It could just be a morally neutral act. So if I comb my hair and put it back in a ponytail, that's a morally neutral act. It does not pertain to the moral realm. It's not something that can be judged as moral or immoral, praiseworthy or blameworthy. I want to note that the concept of coercion, we're going to focus a lot throughout the semester on autonomy. Okay, so freedom of mind, freedom of body, many different freedoms that autonomy entails, freedom for good moral decision making. Coercion is when one is forced to do something against one's will. Okay, so that's how we'll be using that term in this class. So now what I want you to do is do an active learning exercise, and I'm going to read you the different possibilities from our vocabulary. So it could be what I'm about to say could be a claim, and it could be either deontic or axiological, or it could be an act, and it could be either morally obligatory, morally impermissible, or morally permissible. Okay, so here we go. Number 1, killing an innocent person for a feeling of power. Number 2, eating a peach you bought. 3, take care of your children. 4, one should not coerce others. 5, it is morally good to cherish other people. And 6, donating 1/10 of your wealth to charity. So I've been using the word act, meaning action. We use it very specifically in philosophy class to mean an event originating from an agent. An act can be one of commission, wherein somebody does something. Like if I go to vote, that's I'm committing the act of voting. Or an act of omission. This is wherein an agent fails to do something or chooses not to do something, such as I can ignore my my legal right to vote and choose not to vote. An agent is, when we're using this term in class, we just mean a person who acts, okay? A moral agent would therefore be a person who did something which pertains to the moral realm, and a moral patient is any being who is acted upon by a moral agent and or is affected by morally culpable behavior. So culpability is about accountability. So if we can hold some moral agent culpable for the behavior and it affected somebody else, then that somebody else is a moral patient. Finally, I want to use the word person in this class. We're going to use it very specifically for, and this is using John Locke's definition, a thinking intelligent being that has reason and reflection and can consider itself as itself the same thinking thing at different times and places. Okay, so you're going to either match this to something being an act of commission, an act of omission, someone being a moral agent or a moral patient. First, not buying insurance when offered, driving one's car, not voting next year, paying attention to someone who is talking, a person who has been assaulted, a person who has assaulted another person, a good Samaritan, meaning someone who helps supererogatively, meaning they help above and beyond what's expected for minimum moral decency. So we will be talking about moral dilemmas throughout class, and we'll use them to be able to discuss openly different aspects of moral decision-making and moral reasoning. So moral dilemma occurs when two or more moral values or perspectives or duties clash with one another, and it emerges into an open question about what the appropriate action is to do ethically. Okay, so open question means that that people can rationally discuss what should be the case for this moral question. So I'm going to give you an example, and this one comes from an article on free will by Kane. A business person is hurriedly walking to an important job interview when she sees an ongoing assault down in an alleyway. She realizes if she gets involved, she will miss the interview. She reckons she has a moral duty to the helpless victim. Okay, now here I'm going to expand a little past Kane's example. So, so say the woman, business person, intervenes. She stops the assault, gets the victim to medical aid, and ends up being too late for the job interview. If she had not intervened, the assault would have been worse. Did the business person do what is morally right, or was there a better moral decision? Explain your reasoning. Okay, so in this case, we're trying to look within the business person, and their moral dilemma has to do with should they continue on to their job interview, okay, or should they intervene in an emergency situation? Now, we're going to take that scenario and we're going to just look at it sort of descriptively now. So in this one, I want you to figure out who one of the agents was, what an act of commission was, what one act of omission was, what deontic claim can be said about this scenario, and what axiological claim can be made. So let's start with A, it was her moral duty to the helpless victim of an attack. B, not telling of aiding the stranger. C, the business person. D, aiding the stranger. E, it is morally good to show humility. So now we're going to move on to moral objectivism. Moral objectivism is a theory about ethics that states that there are universal and objectively valid moral principles that are neither relative to society nor to any particular culture or any particular time. Some objectivists hold that the ability to reason ethically is within every moral being, and this is from whence the objectivism springs. So mainly, we're just going to focus on this not as something we want to argue about, but what we want to argue from. So we're going to use objectivism, the belief that there are universal, objectively valid moral principles, okay, as the basis for being able to argue in this class. For the sake of making arguments in the class, we will be assuming that our moral claims express things that can be either true or false. So if I say it is wrong to torture a human because the torturer finds it pleasurable. Okay, so that's a moral claim. We're going to treat that in argument as something that you could be either true or false, that you could give reasons for to support in an argument. Okay. In this line, in this class, you're going to avoid all cultural relativism. Okay, this is a good method. Cultural relativism, saying stuff like society holds that, right? Or critics agree, or anything in which you're trying to go from the level of making moral claims to describing some sort of consensus or cultural tenet. Okay, just directly state this is wrong, this is right. Get comfortable making moral claims because you're going to have to be able to present them in moral arguments. Now, the philosopher Thomas Nagel explains the concept of moral objectivism as such. The basis for morality is a belief that good and harm to particular people and animals is good or bad, not just from their own point of view, but from a more general point of view, which every thinking person can understand. Now, cultural relativism holds that what is right is whatever a culture says is right. Okay? This implies that there are no objective or universally valid moral principles, and it often insists or emphasizes tolerance for other cultural practices. So, I want to just first say cultural relativism is the appropriate framework to use if you're a cultural anthropologist in the field learning about a different culture. Okay, you should be tolerant of other cultural practices, but even saying one should be tolerant of other cultural practices is not relativistic itself. That's an objective claim. That's either true or false. Okay. So cultural relativism has problems philosophically, and that's why it's neither a method that's used in ethics, nor is it a theory that we'll rely upon, nor should you rely upon it in method in my class. So what are some problems with it? Well, first of all, there do seem to be universal values. James Rachel's famous philosopher pointed out that some just exist in all cultures across time, across place. Valuing truth-telling, valuing not murdering people, and valuing caring for the young. As he puts it, there are moral rules that exist for all societies because those rules are necessary for societies to exist. If you hold cultural relativism to be true, this might result in, for some disturbing or disagreeable moral implications. Moral implications, meaning if whatever is right is whatever society says is right, then moral progress would be impossible if you believe in moral progress. Then you're not allowed to judge even your own society. You can't say, no, no, expecting those types of rules are wrong, or treating people cruelly is unacceptable. Okay. If the society says treating people cruelly is acceptable in a certain realm or aspect, then you couldn't judge it and say, but no, that doesn't make sense because that doesn't work with other parts of that society, okay, or of your reasoning. Also, one cannot judge another cultural practice. Okay, so you can't look into another practice and say, well, they're, I'm thinking of uh, the South 200 years ago. Well, they're using slavery. Well, we can't judge that now. Again, for most ethicists, this is a very disagreeable implication. There may also be universal forms of moral reasoning, ones that crop up across culture, across time, and really early on. So one is the negative version of the golden rule. When we use the word negative in philosophy class, we mean the word not, okay? So this is Thales, the Greek philosopher, perhaps the first Greek philosopher that we know of. Avoid doing what you would blame others for. The positive version, the version that isn't don't do this, but do this, that's the positive version of the golden rule, is a man should wander about treating all creatures as he himself would be treated. So active reflection exercises, I want you to think about this. This is Confucius's version. And I want you to tell me which version of the golden rule is it? Is it the negative version or is it the positive version? Do not impose on others what you would not want imposed on yourself. There's also a rule called the platinum rule. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them. And I want you to conceptualize this. Again, do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Is the golden rule or the platinum rule better morally? Why? Could they be used in different situations for different types of people or different social roles? Um, if so, or if not, why? All right.